I'm still getting my head on straight. It's been a long holiday week, I feel like. As we're recording this, it's the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So,
cheers, boys.
A lot of returning back to normalcy this week for people who have been off work, perhaps, or school, or whatever you have it.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of us are ready for that. I'm certainly not.
No. I mean, back to regular work after like a weird week.
Weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, especially one of those weeks where I didn't have the whole week off. I had like the last half of it off. So there's like a weird half work situation where you're there, but you're not there mentally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
David, did you get to have Thanksgiving off?
I did. Thanksgiving off. Worked Black Friday though, which is I think that's the right day to work because it's not really a holiday, but a lot of people ask for it off for some reason. So you come in, everything's chilled. There's usually a lot of where I work. If there's a lot of football games, it means you don't have as much work to do. So it worked out to be a pretty good day.
That's nice.
Didn't have any issues with Thanksgiving. We celebrated on Sunday with my wife's family, and then on Thanksgiving Day with my family. So all worked out great there.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
We had 15 people over at my parents' house with an oven that didn't work most of Thanksgiving. So that was exciting. It was wonderful, but, a little bit of chaos, but that's what you expect on Thanksgiving. It's a little bit of family chaos in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm. So it was a kind of an air fryer Christmas for you guys.
It was. And you know what? Everything was delicious. And thankfully, we do a thing where, like, most of us make sides. So it's like a potluck kind of a thing. You're not relying on one person to make something. So it's okay that the oven wasn't necessarily working. And my dad deep fries the turkey. So we don't need an oven for that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. My family actually did steaks this year instead of turkey, which I've advocated for a long time to do something non-traditional because honestly, I just don't like turkey that much. People love turkey, but I'm not that big on turkey. And we do turkey at Thanksgiving and then at Christmas. And I just asked, can we do something different at one of them? So this year, we grilled some steaks. It was good.
I advocate for a Christmas brisket because that's what we do.
Not a bad idea.
Josh?
Yeah, no, we do a pretty normal Thanksgiving and Christmas turkey, but for both pretty much. Sometimes there's a second option. This year we had a small selection of ham, but I'm not a ham person. I don't really care for the ham part.
Yeah.
So
ham when it's dry.
I heard many
awful.
people call you a ham before.
No. What I do want to ask though is, did you guys have any fun or unique desserts? That's my favorite part of a holiday dinner is the holiday dessert.
Not really.
Just the normal for you guys or what?
We had brownies. I don't know if a lot of people do brownies for Thanksgiving. Nikki made brownies, and then we bought a bunch of Seinfeld-esque black and white cookies. And I told my wife as I was holding them, I said, get ready to hear me, my dad, and my brother all say, look to the cookie, Elaine, like 800 times because it's going to happen.
Yeah,
and it did. I was right.
Over.
Look to the cookie. We said it.
Look to the cookie.
Countless times. They were delicious, though. I got to say, I was actually genuinely surprised by how good that cookie was.
We had, my dad makes, or my grandpa makes a custard pie, like an egg custard pie. And then we made like a pumpkin Swiss roll, which is just basically a pumpkin pie, just with a cream cheese swirl. So nothing too crazy. We had some baklava, which was yummy. So, we have some stuff. Everything's pretty traditional.
Okay, yeah. We had mostly the traditional apple pie, pumpkin pie, stuff like that. But this year we also had it's like a brick of smoked cream cheese, and you dip graham cracker in it. There was a sweet version and a salty version. You had a graham cracker for the sweet and like a club cracker, whatever, for the salty. It was pretty good.
It was like dessert fondue.
Never had smoked cream cheese before. It wasn't fondue because it wasn't like a liquid consistency. It was still like a brick of cheese that you dipped from. It was just like I don't know. I'm not a chef or cook of any sort. I don't know how cheese doesn't melt but gets hot. You explain that.
Sorcery.
It's Thanksgiving magic. But yeah, I love the dessert parts of Thanksgiving. So I'm glad everybody had good ones.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the next big holiday coming up, though, which is the kickoff of a brand new month for us here on So Many Sequels. The highly anticipated annual month of So Many Santas is here.
That's right.
Everyone's favorite.
We're talking
My
about-
favorite.
Yeah.
Your favorite.
Yeah.
A treat and gift to us all.
To everyone. We're talking about Christmas movies all month long. We've been doing it for years now. You can go back to SoManySequels.com or in your podcast app. Scroll back to December of basically the last several years, and you'll find our selection of Christmas movies. We actually went through them last week on the show. If you listen to our Christmas reveal episode, we put that full list out, and I think we have a letterbox list of it, don't we?
We do. We do. You can follow me on Letterboxd and find it there. And I need to clone it over to the So Many Sequels account.
Yes. So we are doing that. But just to get the season started, before we start talking about our pick of the week, I know you have started getting into the Christmas movie spirit, Garrett. What have you been watching aside from our pick of the week?
You know, it's been an interesting journey because, I started putting up a Christmas tree, and, my goal was to not watch a Christmas movie. I wanted to watch something that was, Thanksgiving themed, but I didn't want to watch, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles or think about Knives Out. I didn't want to watch that in the background. That's a movie I want to sit down and watch. So I ended up just watching some Christmas movies, and I started with ones that you don't have to really pay too much attention to. I watched A Medea Christmas, which I found that last year. Super funny. Oh my gosh, it's so unexpectedly funny, and I highly recommend it. It's got a nice little Christmas message. It's got just a little bit of Larry the Cable Guy, which is really all you need. But it was really funny. And then I found, I think it came out last year, but it was called Christmas with the Campbells, and it has Brittany Snow and Alex Moffat and Justin Long, and it essentially is a satire of most of these Netflix or Hallmark Christmas movies, and it's one of those where it's the satire is really, I don't know, it's not subtle. So there are moments where you forget and you think, man, this is bad. Oh no, they're making fun of it. And so it was a really weird experience, but kind of enjoyable. I wouldn't necessarily revisit it or recommend it. And then I watched Violent Night. Josh, you remember Violent Night with David Harbour? David, I don't remember if you've seen it, but this would not necessarily be one of your Christmas movies, but man, it is.
It's silly.
Wonderfully fun.
Yeah.
And then, we
Christmas
got,
theme.
we watched Christmas Vacation. I watched The Family Stone, which is one that I had never seen before. Sarah Jessica Parker and Dermot Mulroney. A whole bunch of people. It was an interesting watch, too.
Dermot Mulroney, not Dylan McDermott.
Kind of have been all over the place. That's a fun game. I'm pretty sure this was Dermot Mulroney.
That is a fun game. It's the only reason I really know either of their names.
I know.
If I have to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a pretty heavy intro to the month. You went hard.
I know I did. I didn't watch as many horror movies, so I'm trying to play catch up.
That's true. I watched one new Christmas movie. It's out in theaters right now. It's called The Holdovers. It's from director Alexander Payne and stars Paul Giamatti as a professor at an all-boys school type situation. And essentially he's put in charge of watching the holdovers over Christmas break, which are the 6 to 7 students that don't get to go home for the holidays. They have to stay behind at school, and he is the teacher that will have to watch them. And essentially, he's your run-of-the-mill, curmudgeonly, old, lonely, hard-ass teacher who wants them to spend their whole break studying, more studying. You have to be better, and not having any Christmas fun. So it's one of those types of movies where you get to see them try to get some Christmas magic into him, and Paul Giamatti trying to get them to do some of their schoolwork. So it's a nice feel good movie. I would recommend it for the holiday season.
That sounds great.
Yeah,
Paul
it's pretty
Giamatti.
good.
He's always good.
Exactly. He's one of the greats for a reason, and I think he's really kind of understated in this. He's just really good. You just believe him instantly that he is this guy.
Do you have a
Oscar-worthy movie? Maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
Do you have a rating for us, Josh?
Yeah, I think it's a 4-star movie for me.
That's good.
It's still fresh on my mind, so I need to sit with it. I've been considering going to see it again, just because I enjoyed it that much. So maybe
it's good. It's rarefied air
to do that. Yeah.
At least for me.
And we were talking about, I believe, in our last episode about how, we couldn't really think of a lot of brand new Christmas movies coming out, and I didn't even really recognize it as a Christmas movie till I saw it, until it started, and I was like, oh, okay. So it's kind of subtle at that, but it counts.
Cool. Yeah.
And with that, let's get into So Many Santas. First, let me explain what we're doing this month. Right. Each of us have picked a movie, and we are going to talk about one a week. Then we are going to do a fan pick at the end of the month on Christmas. I believe it's where it times out for. Yeah. So this week we're doing my pick, which is The Grinch. But we need to get your suggestions before the month ends so that we know what we're going to do. So we're going to put a call out to you guys, the viewers and listeners of the show, to send us some suggestions for Christmas, holiday, related, adjacent, whatever floats your boat in the holiday time. We want to know what your suggestion is so that we can watch it and talk about it on the show. It could be a holiday classic. It could be maybe something no one's ever heard of before, or maybe just something that is special to you for some reason. I don't know. We would love to hear why. But you can let us know on our social media pages. So Many Sequels Pod on Instagram and on Threads, and So Many Sequels on Facebook. You can also leave us a comment in the the comment section of our YouTube channel on this video or any of the other Christmas ones. So go do that. Let us know. We're also going to put some polls up with some of the most popular Christmas movies from Letterboxd. We will pick from your guys' votes which one we're going to do last. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. As long as, hey, the only rule is it has to be, Christmassy or, of the Christmas season or something like that, ideally. Right. We've had a great debate over the years about Christmas movie versus Christmas themed. We're going to have a little bit of both this year, I think. Movies that are clearly Christmas movies that are they not? I have a feeling if we put it to the fans, I know what they're going to go with. But it's up to you guys. Let us know what you want. Meanwhile, Josh, we've reached a special milestone here.
You're right. I do, again, want to remind you guys to go leave your suggestion for what Christmas movie we should watch on our YouTube channel, one of our videos, because we have reached a 100 subscriber milestone on that page, which is exciting because this show didn't start on YouTube. It really wasn't a focus for us at all until pretty recently. So it's exciting to see it growing there. We've been doing this as a podcast for like 6 years now, but we've only been actively doing videos for like 3 and maybe decent videos for 1. So
I think
we're trying to do better at that.
Forced us on that, didn't it?
It did. Well, yeah, the pandemic forced us to do fully remote, and then it's just worked ever since. So, but we're excited to have 100 subscribers on that YouTube channel now. So if you haven't subscribed yet, go do it. Go join the club, and you can get our podcasts on your phone or TV or wherever you watch YouTube.
Help us reach our goal of 110 by the end of the year.
We just need 10?
100
That's
more.
less than the days of Christmas.
I know.
That's less than the days of Christmas.
12 then. Let's make it 12 days of Christmas, right? 8 nights of Hanukkah. So, just 12 more subscribers. That's all we need. I mean, if everybody who watches this video subscribes and they're not already a subscriber, then great. If you are a subscriber, don't accidentally click unsubscribe. Just keep being a subscriber, and we'll be fine.
Exactly.
Exactly.
All right. I think that's enough of the housekeeping for today. So let's go ahead and get into the first So Many Santas of the month. We're talking about my pick, which is 2000's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. This is, of course, the iconic live-action adaptation of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the beloved Dr. Seuss book and TV special. People love both of those. This movie is directed by Ron Howard, has a cast including Jim Carrey, Jeffrey Tambor, Christine Baranski, Molly Shannon, Bryce Dallas Howard, a very young Bryce Dallas Howard, and Taylor Momsen making her debut as Cindy Lou Who. Letterboxd says about this movie, inside a snowflake exists the magical land of Whoville. In Whoville live the Whos, an almost mutated sort of munchkin-like people. That's a weird sentence. All the Whos love Christmas, yet just outside of their beloved Whoville lives the Grinch, a nasty creature that hates Christmas and plots to steal it away from the Whos, whom he equally abhors. Yet a small child, Cindy Lou Who, decides to try befriending the Grinch. What's everybody's initial thoughts on the Grinch? Did we love it as a kid? We were kids when this came out.
Yeah, I was about
10, 11 years old, probably.
Well, Josh, why don't you go first? Because you can tell us why you picked it.
Yeah. So I remember watching this movie. I'm pretty sure I remember seeing it in the theaters. Something about it just... I remember seeing it in the theaters, and then I remember watching it a lot when it came out on DVD. And I think some of that was because of me watching it, and I think even more of it was because of my younger sister watching it a lot, too. So I just remember watching this version of The Grinch so much that there was a period of time where I couldn't stand it anymore. Mm-hmm. And now I've circled back to liking it again. So that's kind of why I picked it, was I wanted to revisit it from the adult perspective. And also just because it is, I think, one of the most recent movies you could arguably say has become a modern classic in the Christmas genre. I think it's like that and Elf to me. So, and Jim Carrey, iconic. Mm-hmm. There's a lot going for this movie at the time and even still today. So that's why I picked it. I still really liked it. I'm still in the period of not hating it anymore phase. There's a lot more to appreciate that I know we're going to talk about later. There's some more adult humor in this that you catch as an adult. That some of it, honestly, you probably catch as a child, because there's a few instances where it's pretty not subtle, but there's also plenty of stuff to catch for adults too. And that Jim Carrey performance is just one of his best. He not just disappears into the makeup, but he's like completely unrecognizable, mm-hmm. even in voice and everything. So I like The Grinch a lot. That's why I picked it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, what about you, Garrett?
Yeah, I was also a big fan. It's also one that I don't really watch very often. In the same vein, not necessarily of not liking it. It is more a matter of I like anti-Christmas movies, and this one has always felt too much like Christmas. And so for me, that's less fun whenever you're kind of a Grinch yourself sometimes. So you don't necessarily want to watch those where your heart grows two sizes at the end. You want to see the one where they're all on drugs or hopped up on speed or whatever they do.
Just the night before.
Those are the ones that don't make David's Christmas list. But I also, this is definitely one that you saw in theaters with your family. We always made a point of going to see kind of a holiday movie, whether it was The Lord of the Rings, whenever those were coming out, we would always go see those around the holiday time. We definitely went and saw this, and being hilarious. Jim Carrey at this point in time is the peak mm-hmm. of humor, of like comedian, of physical comedy, and what he brings to this character, has really become, again, something of its own, even overtaking, the TV special, which, I don't think most people could tell you when it airs on TV anymore. And I think that they have taken this version to become kind of the memorable one. There's so many standout parts. Josh, you mentioned so much. You forgot to mention the real star of the show, which is Max the dog. Mm-hmm. Absolute. Just give the dog an Oscar for most best supporting actor throughout the whole movie. I mean, he just makes you feel through this whole thing. And for me, that is one of the things that I have always remembered about this movie, is that I just loved Max. And everything else, it's a fun version, very enjoyable. I think the world is really fun. I think Cindy Lou Who is a good character to discuss and analyze. And I think that it's a fun question to pose. Is like, is the Grinch really the Grinch? Or is it the Who's?
For me, I feel like this was probably another babysitter movie situation where I did not see this like right when it came out, but I remember it being on and maybe being with other people when I was watching it. So like maybe like other, like other family was around, or maybe it was my babysitter. I can't really remember specifically, but I always remembered being kind of off put by it. I remember it just feeling almost borderline creepy at times because it is very like grungy, and it's very like in Jim Carrey's very imposing as the Grinch in this movie. Yeah, and obviously it was funny. I mean, we'll get more into my like general feelings about the movie in here in just a little bit, but my initial thoughts are that it's a very funny movie, but I don't love everything about it. And that's kind of where I've always been with it. Like the other night, I was laughing at times, and there was times where I was just like, I don't like this. So it's kind of I'm of two minds with it. I'm not gonna like, a little foreshadowing here. I'm not necessarily gonna rate it poorly, and I don't think anybody who enjoys it is wrong necessarily. But I just, I don't know. I have some thoughts about it that may not be the most popular. So that's all I'll say for now. But yeah, I can recognize that it has a place in history. I hope it hasn't. I mean, I guess in some ways, in many ways, it has outgrown the 1966 special. But for me, that's kind of that was the
Grinch.
Yeah, that was the Grinch, and that was the thing that I, in my head, I had to compare it to as a child, and I still do to this day. And I think there's pros and cons to each adaptation. Anyway, that's my initial thought. Where do you want to start now?
Well, so I was going to say, before we go into some of our more in-depth discussions about the movie, I do think we should talk about the kind of impact that it had, especially with this being such a huge hit at the box office. Mm-hmm. Will you give us like a little look at how this movie performed? I believe it was one of the highest grossing movies of the year, wasn't it?
It was. In fact, I believe it was the number one movie of the year 2000. To kind of skip to that part, it was the number 6 movie worldwide in 2000, bringing in $345 million overseas. 260 of that was here in the United States, where it would be the number one movie of the year, just ahead of Castaway, Mission Impossible 2, Gladiator, and What Women Want. It did really good numbers opening weekend. Its opening weekend was November 17th of the year 2000, where it brought in $55 million, beating out, you're going to love this list, Rugrats in Paris, which brought in $22 million in its opening week. Charlie's Angels fell to the number 3 spot in its third weekend with $13 million. The Sixth Day, which is an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, came in number 4, opening to $13 million. And then the Ben Affleck, Gwyneth Paltrow movie Bounce comes in at number 5 with 11.4. So 4 new movies in the theaters that weekend. The Grinch had a pretty minimal drop its following weekend, which was Thanksgiving weekend. So almost 23 years ago this weekend, exactly 23 years ago this weekend, it brought in, it just dropped 5% for its 3-day, but it brought in $73 million over the full 5-day Thanksgiving weekend. So really big numbers. For a long time, it was the highest grossing Christmas film, it passing Home Alone. It has since been passed by the 2018 Illumination Grinch for highest grossing Christmas or Christmas themed movie.
And that's offensive. Let's just get that out.
It's kind of crazy. I kind of feel
offensive.
Like I haven't watched that movie, and I feel like I kind of want to at this point, just so I can have the full comparison. But it's crazy to think, one, it's crazy to think that movie came out 5 years ago. Like, that, I could have swore I saw that trailer for The Grinch and that little, like, you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch beatbox, whatever, that they had for that. Like, I saw it in theaters hundreds of times, and now it's 5 years old. Like, what happened? Anyway, that's it. We've done only a couple other movies from the year 2000. It's a movie we need to visit more often. We did one of them just the other week. It was Meet the Parents. And then we did Bedazzled and Mission Impossible 2. We will be soon revisiting the year 2000, don't you worry, for my Christmas movie. But that's it. Let's get into, unless there's any questions, let's get into the deep discussion here.
Yeah, absolutely. Cannot wait for that. So I think a good place to start here, because David, you made note of this here on our shared doc that we have to keep the show organized. That's right. We have an organized show. I can't get the word out, but we organized this show for you. That you wanted to compare the movie versus the book, and I find that interesting because the book is like 3 words. So
It's not 3 words.
I'm wondering what exactly you want to compare.
Well,
to this such a short book that
it is.
That
It's
has
a very
been made into a movie.
It's not a very long book, maybe 25 to 30 pages. I don't know the exact amount. But it's, one of Dr. Seuss's potentially his most well-known book, aside from The Cat in the Hat, probably. And, the approach to get this made was that Dr. Seuss never wanted films made of his books, like feature films made of his books. And after his death in 1991, his wife, at that point finally decided to auction off the rights to make some movies of some of the books. And one of those was How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And I think that it was a very difficult task to adapt the book because, like we said, it's not that long. And so this movie had to find a way, even the Christmas special from 66, I think it's like 35 minutes, maybe. So this had to find a way to cram in an hour of more content. And so what they did was they expanded the character of Cindy Lou who is like not even really like a full character. They gave the Grinch an entire backstory. They made the Who's more unlikable, generally speaking, to the audience and not just the Grinch. So they like there's a lot that they had to add. And that, for me, that's where it either falls apart or you really like it, is in the Grinch's expanded story. And so I think that's very, there's so much, even little things, like Whoville is not on a snowflake in the book. Like that's something that they just kind of like made for this. And it's a change that I like because you have the Who's of Whoville here, but you also have the Who's of Horton Hears a Who, and they live on a speck of dust. So it kind of like feels natural that like Christmas Who's would live on a snowflake, right? It just kind of, it makes sense. But I don't know. Do you guys remember reading the Dr. Seuss book, or do you remember ever looking at it? And what do you think about how they went about adapting this book for the big screen?
Yeah, I remember reading the book, of course. And I think that what this movie did best was kind of reset people's idea of what the Grinch and Whoville look like. And it really did that by honing in hard on what some of those original drawings looked like. I would say it matches the aesthetic of those Dr. Seuss designs pretty well. And then expands on it by showing us this whole wide world and people's houses and all kinds of different people and the Grinch's house and all this stuff. So I don't know. This is not a movie where I go to start thinking about ways it compares to the book. It really it matches the look, which is important. And it matches the whole Dr. Seussian kind of whimsy and rhyme scheme. So I'm happy with it in that way.
Yeah, I don't think most people will compare it to the book. I think most people will compare it to the show. And then again, I think that each artist gets to take a certain amount of creative liberties because, yeah, you are expanding it. And so, I mean, you could take it and say you do. If you're going to take a 10-minute read of a book, if you're generous, and expand it to an hour and a half long movie, you have to create something because it's not. And so, I think that you have to give the Grinch a backstory. You have to give it a reason why you hate Christmas, because in the book, it's enough to hate Christmas and then love it. But in a movie, it's not. And without the actual author there to make that source material change, somebody has to just decide to create the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is on at each person's thing. And I don't necessarily think it's fair to compare it to each individual one because they are so different. That's kind of where I stand on it. I think that if they are able to bring the essence of it to life and get the actual message of it across, then I think that works.
See, and for me, that's where it falters because I don't feel like it does a good job of that. You talked about sort of the production design element, and that works. Like the Grinch for the most part cost like makeup wise, that all looks good. The things that are like the toys that are like these big horns that spin around, and the way the cars are designed and everything like that, the Who's themselves, that all looks good. To me, the movie is so like grim and faded, and it's so like 2000s, like it's like grunge punk in a weird way. Like everything just looks kind of dirty, even though it's kind of supposed to be Christmas and shiny. Everything just kind of looks so worn out. And personally, I feel like the movie, I know Garrett, I think based on what you put in the notes, I think you really appreciate the commentary on commercialism. And I think it does a disservice to the story, in my opinion, what the original story goes with by making the Who's actually really commercialistic and really, obsessed with that. Because in that book, at the end, the Grinch's assumption is, all they care about is the stuff. Only to at the end find out, hey, they don't care about the stuff at all. Christmas means more than this stuff that I assumed it was about the stuff, and I was wrong. But in this movie, no, they do really care about the stuff. That's all they care about. And it takes Cindy Lou Who's, very dramatic, self-reflection to help them all come together to realize, hey, that, Christmas should be about family and all that stuff. And so the Who's aren't, I don't know, it probably works for most people. For me, I feel like the change in the Grinch should be the way they present the story should be more about Cindy Lou Who coming back to find him and help him and invite him to Christmas, more so than it should be about him hearing the Who sing. I don't know if I'm explaining it as well as I want to, but that's just kind of where I felt like all the stuff they added just made the story more complicated than I feel like it really needed to be. And I don't know. And it like I said, it just feels so, I don't know. It feels so dirty compared to the book.
Wow, I've never heard someone say so many wrong things in such rapid succession.
Oh.
But that's okay. No, not that many. But I do. I don't really know what you mean about it being so dirty. I don't see it as being.
What
so,
do you mean?
This
movie doesn't look washed out to you?
Not really. I guess. I mean, no, not in a way that it stands out to me.
Wow, it like literally stood out to me immediately how faded and colorless the whole thing was.
That's the way I see things by default most times, so I can't be of much help there.
No. He's green, right? Green. Not brown or whatever you see.
He's just like Kermit the Frog, brown like Kermit.
Interesting that
I
you feel it went
depends
too cynical.
On the time frame too. I mean, you look at 2000s and what's happening is the blow up of online shopping and commercialism, and that is kind of what everybody seems to have turned Christmas into at that point in time. So I do think that for the time, that is what it needed to be, is Christmas the way that it was presented. And again, going to one of the things that I had mentioned is that I kind of relate to it because looking at it from a Cindy Lou Who perspective, I remember being a kid thinking, man, I hear people say that the spirit of the season is to love and to care for everybody else, but all I see is a bunch of idiots just driving around being pricks, only caring about getting their discounted stuff for their friends. And to me, that is what resonated this time as I was listening to Cindy Lou Who, and I was like, oh, hey, I felt that I see all of these people running around like crazy, not caring about someone like the Grinch, who was alone, who was mistreated. And you're saying that the spirit of the season is to care about people, but all you care about is your stuff. And And so that's the message that I got.
No, and
So
that's totally
it
the
did
message.
resonate
I
to
get
me
that.
because, but yeah, it resonated to me because that is what I have always seen. I have heard one thing, but seen people act a completely different way.
Mhm.
And so to me, it made sense.
Oh, it makes sense. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. I'm just saying I don't think it's in spirit with the book, with the story. I feel like they make the Grinch's dislike of the Who's totally justified. And by doing that, you don't end up really thinking the Grinch should change. You want to root for the Grinch to be like, nah, yeah, destroy their stuff. They are jerks who only care about stuff.
No, because I don't think it's that extreme on either end, really. Like, he was bullied as a kid, but what the change in the movie allows is for both the Who's and the Grinch to learn a positive lesson in the end.
Yeah.
Versus just like pretending all Who's are good and that the Grinch is all evil. This way, there allows some nuance in there.
Yeah, maybe.
Lets them both learn.
Yeah, because there's no black and white. I mean, yeah, people can claim to be good and holy and all of thee, but then you mistreat people who are different, who do whatever, and then you outcast them, and then you make them the bad guy because they're different than you.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't give them a chance. That's a story that resonates with me.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, that's great.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that too. Do you have any other notes you wanted to throw out there on the commercialism aspect, Garrett? We already hit a big chunk of it, so.
No, I mean, that was the main thing. I was kind of surprised this time at how much I really related with Cindy Lou and her analysis of Christmas and what was presented versus what I'm hearing I'm supposed to see it as. That was something that really bothered me as a kid and thus made me feel like such a Grinch of I'm supposed to be so magically, wonderfully fulfilled at this time of year, but man, everybody sure seems to be a jerk. Everybody's just acting like a big old jerk, and I don't understand why.
Yeah.
So that element was fun to see in this of like, help me understand what this spirit of Christmas is supposed to be about if you're not actually living it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to hear more of our conversation about commercialism, you can look up our So Many Santas episode about Jingle All the Way, which was also a big movie that wanted to be a commentary about commercialism, but just kind of went off the rails in a lot of weird ways.
Yeah. Commercialism and Christmas are a common theme that you'll see come together. Mm-hmm. And I mean, my final word on it would be that I think it handles it well, and I'm glad there's a commercialism aspect at play because it's so important for the audience of the movie, in particular. That's what people need to hear is that it's not all about the gizmos and gadgets and toys and decorations and all that. The Grinch can steal it all, but at the end of the day, it's supposed to be about Christmas.
How many Christmas parties are centered around some kind of random gift exchange rather than being an opportunity to just gather with your friends and care about them and be in the spirit. You always have to make sure that you have a gift and exchange it in some way, shape, or form, even if it's a $5 limit that you went to the dollar store and was like, what's the cheapest thing that someone might kind of like?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just some harmless fun. There's a difference between expressing your appreciation for someone through gifts and then also just consuming for the sake of consuming for the Grinch, and I think this is another part for me where it undermines a little bit of the change for the Who's is that the Grinch spells out, you guys buy each other junk every year and it ends up on my mountain when you throw it away. Like, that's the level that they get to, is just buying stuff for the sake of stuff. That there's no meaning behind the gift. It's just, oh, well, you have to get this for this person, this for that person, this and this, right? And I think that's a good message, but I just kind of feel like the way, for me, they went about it just doesn't ring as well as it could. So I know what it's about. I know what it's supposed to be about, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel like, it feels like what they should have done is, I think, made the mayor more of a driving villain. Like, he's the one encouraging the commercialism, maybe somehow he's tied, because it helps him. And then you have a central bad guy to kind of focus that rage in on, and all the other Who's are just being manipulated, and they are actually maybe more good at heart. And I just feel like this went a long way to just making all the Who's just seem bad. I don't know. All right, whatever. I'm taking Dr. Seuss too serious. I was taking it too seriously,
Yep,
bro.
you are.
You're
I don't know
overthinking
how
it,
you
bro.
came out of that thinking all the Who's look bad.
They
I
do.
just thought they
How
looked
do
like
they not?
normal people.
How do they
Because that's how
not?
people are. And I don't
All
think
right.
all people are bad.
Well, don't watch Grinch.
But that's not the
but-
only way.
Yeah, let's
in which
transition
this
to the other
movie
part.
had some adult themes. The Grinch was also kind of freaky. Let's
Mm-hmm.
be honest. And so was Christine Baranski. Let's be super honest.
Yes.
What's going on with the adult humor in this movie? Is it too much at times, we think?
At times.
Or
Yeah.
should the Grinch be freaky?
You know,
The Grinch should be freaky.
there's a couple of
But there's a level of like, you got to throw stuff in there for the kids, or you got to throw stuff in there for the adults. You're gonna have them sit there for this kid-centered movie for an hour and 45 minutes. You gotta pepper in some jokes that kids won't get until they're a little bit older and revisit it, right? But a lot of this is like pretty in your face as far as like what they're going for, and I do think that is a little strange.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure how that fits in or why that fits in. I mean, again, you kind of get that like cringe-worthy humor, and again, it's the 2000s, and so that's kind of where humor was at the time, with the cringy and the sexy and the this is edgy kind of making that. But yeah, I don't have a problem with a freaky Grinch, but this is a little bit freaky deaky.
Yeah, sex was big in the 90s and early 2000s. Whether it is the
We've
guy
totally given up on that.
Famously,
what-
never again was it ever
Sex
infamous.
so passe these days.
whether it's the Who saying, "Look, our baby's here. He looks just like your boss." Whether it's the key party going on at the Grinch's prospective adopters, or even the Grinch slamming face first into what is her name, Melissa May, I can't remember, Martha May's
Christine Baranski,
chest.
Martha May.
Even as an 11-year-old, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's a bit aggressive." So yeah, it's a very, there's a playful amount of raunch, which used to happen in a lot, more often in kids movies, but I don't know. Apparently Jim Carrey, there's a lot of outtakes of him saying like really adult stuff, and he has in interviews said he kind of regrets how adult the movie was at times. And Ron Howard has said he regrets it, but he says there was a lot of push from the studio to make it more adult, for this to be kind of a
sexy Grinch.
they want like
Make it
teens,
sexier, Ron.
they wanted the teens and the adults to really, I don't know, come out for this, and not so much 8 and 9-year-olds or whoever the target you think would be.
Make them think about the Grinch. Sexy
Oh,
Grinch.
man. What did you guys think? Was it too
Grinch
adult?
Energy. BGE. I don't know. I don't really think so. I don't really think it crossed the line for me anywhere. It's funny enough. And it's like, I just don't care anymore, I think. I just can't be bothered to care. I'm like, really? The Grinch? Is that what you're upset about? Okay.
Man.
That's my take.
What about the Grinch himself? What about
Yeah.
Mr. Jim? What about Jimmy Carrey? Again,
Obviously the
physical
only person who
comedy
could do it.
Genius at the person. I feel like this is like perfect casting.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
also feel like, what do you do? What does Jim Carrey do after this?
Because of Jim Carrey's
Whatever he wants.
so specific in this. Like, once Jim Carrey does it, you can't really put anybody else in your head to do it. The only other person at this time frame that I think would have worked with this director with this direction would probably have been like a Robin Williams. But even then, it would be a completely different interpretation of how the Grinch would happen. Apparently, Eddie Murphy was considered at one point. Apparently, when the movie, because initially they wanted Tim Burton to direct, and at that point they had ideas for someone like a Tom Hanks or a Jack Nicholson, and those might have worked, but would again have been a completely different way of going with how the Grinch Stole Christmas compared to this, I think. Obviously, they're looking for anybody who can do that weird smile where he's like, the whole smile goes up his face. So Jim Carrey's iconic. I mean, I know I've said a lot of things about the story, but the movie's genuinely funny. Who who knows how much of it exactly was ad lib. You know, there's that scene where he goes to pull the sheet off of the table and all of the things stay, and he goes and knocks them all back over. That's so funny. I can't believe it wasn't supposed to happen. He was supposed to rip the sheet off and all the things fall off. And Jim Carrey is just so good at physical comedy that he accidentally pulled the sheet and nothing moved. And so he goes and knocks it over anyway. Hilarious.
Beautiful.
One of my other favorite scenes is when he's going down his list of things that he has to do, his daily schedule, and he's like, 4 p.m., wallow in self-pity. 4:30, stare into the abyss. 5, solve world hunger. Tell no one. And then my favorite is Jazzercise and this is actually my favorite. I say this to myself all the time. 6:30, dinner with me. I can't cancel that again. And then wrestle with my self-loathing. I'm booked. I can't do it now.
That scene in particular is very relatable, right?
For sure, especially after COVID. I mean, come on. Every adult in their 30s is thinking, yep. Check, did it. Check, did it. Still working on that world hunger, but everything else I did that today.
That's why the Grinch is such a relatable king. That's why we love him. That's why we all worship the Grinch now. That's why people want to be the Grinch. They want to be with the Grinch because they already feel they are the Grinch.
The Grinch really, and what is it? Jim Carrey obviously throwing on a little bit of like Sean Connery voice with it. That kind of like, it just, it's become it's embedded in the minds of, I think, almost anybody who's in their 30s, at least at this point. I can't tell you how many TikToks I've seen of women trying on either dresses or wedding dresses or something like that, and they do the scene where he's in the lederhosen and he's like, and then I'm not going in the walk off.
Yes, another great scene.
It's too much.
And like you have to think that's Jim being Jim. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth and say it was improvised when it's not, but there's just a lot of those moments like that where it would be completely different with someone else.
Yes.
Who knows if it would be as memey as it is today? Very, very memeable. Still yet.
Yeah.
23 years later.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
My brain froze. What I was gonna say, speaking of Jim Carrey, he had to, according to him, endure literal torture for this movie. Through the makeup process, which was extremely extensive. It was done by multiple Academy Award-winning makeup stylist Richard Baker, who had done I think he had won 7 Oscars at that point for previous films, all for makeup. So he was one of the best in the game, and designed all of the Whoville look, like the physical look, the Grinch's look. And I saw an interview where Jim said the first day of makeup, it took him 8 hours to get that on. And he went up to Ron Howard and was like, I can't do this. I'm not going to do this movie if this is how it's going to be every day. And he said that they hired a guy who actually worked with former CIA operatives for enduring torture.
Right.
And taught him some techniques to get through the makeup process without losing his mind.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, apparently before that, he did quite lose his mind.
Yes.
The on-set so Baker, like you said, did the design work. The on-set artist, Kazuhiro, who is also Academy Award-winning makeup artist, he's worked on, everything from Churchill to the movie Life to Planet of the Apes and things like that. It got really tough for the makeup artist and other people on the set because it drove Jim. The process drove Jim so crazy that he was like apparently a total a-hole to people on set. He kicked a hole through a trailer, is what some people claim, and he said that he would just be awful to people because it was a combination of the makeup. Those contacts were incredibly uncomfortable for his eyes, so he would just treat people horribly. They said that for the first few weeks, like you said, Josh, they only got a few hours worth of footage a day because they would like break for a few minutes and Jim would disappear and then he'd come back and Jim had ripped off all of the makeup and all of the fur and everything off of his body because it was driving him so crazy. So the makeup artist actually left the project for like a week And until like Jim promised that they made some kind of arrangement to like, hey, we got to work this out because we can't have this sort of environment where you're incredibly frustrated and then taking it out on everybody else like this. So it was and like Carrey later described it as a lesson in Zen, and I'm hopefully he took away the right lesson of, what, everybody's trying to do a job. Let's figure this out. But yeah, it sounded like it was a very tough process. And unfortunately, it doesn't come through because he does such a great performance that it's hard to believe he was in that much frustration through it all.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to believe it's even him under all that most of the time. But it was kind of crazy to see the effort that they went through for the makeup. And there was a lot of practical effects with this movie, makeup and set-wise.
Mm-hmm.
It was, at the time, I don't know if this record has been broken, but at the time, the set for Whoville and How the Grinch Stole Christmas was the biggest set ever built on the Universal Studios lot. Even still today, it's part of the Universal Studios tour if you go on it. Garrett, I don't know if you remember, we went on that several years ago. You, me, and Andrew. And you do go through part of Whoville that they say is part of the set that was used, and they really built all that. Most of the blue screen stuff is exterior backgrounds, horizon, stuff like that. I watched a little making of on YouTube. I don't just know all this, by the way. But yeah, it's just really cool to see that be so. They put so much effort into it that it became one of the biggest sets that had ever been built in the studio, and it's part of it still standing today. And I think how Ron Howard and the design team made Whoville come to life is also part of why this movie has such a lasting legacy. I think it's very easy to kind of disappear to, even if David thinks it's dirty.
Well, they had a choice. They had a clear vision and they executed it.
Yeah.
Whether or not I think the vision looks good, looks good at times is irrelevant because they executed it. It looked, they created an iconic look, especially the Grinch design, and the set design was big, and it was, you felt like that town existed. So yeah, it's an impressive amount of work. I wish that more movies today would commit to this level of real production design.
Stop relying on the green screen, Marvel.
Right,
use it where it's necessary, but don't use it all the time.
Right. Like, I like the idea of using it for horizons and the background stuff, but if you could, the more actual set pieces you can build, I think the better.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I don't know where all of this production budget money is going.
Yeah, stop
just
cranking
keep
out
spending
all
more
them
and making less.
ranking movies and maybe less movies, better quality. How about that?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's again brings back the commercialism, I think, somehow. You know what, though? As we ease out of this conversation, I wanted to bring up Universal's really kind of embraced the Grinch more so, I think, in recent years, because of how, as millennials have aged into adulthood, he's become an even more relatable character. And have you guys seen the Meet the Grinch experience that they have at Universal Studios now?
I think I've seen one clip.
So I've gotten on a side of Grinch talk, I guess, because I've been served several of these lately.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's the holidays, so I'm sure they're doing it now. But there is a, photo op style experience where you can wait in line at Universal Studios and meet the Grinch. And it's a guy in a pretty good-looking Grinch suit from the time. He's an actor, so it's like a Disney character type situation where he has fully embodied the Grinch. And he is hysterical. He's clearly modeled after Jim Carrey's Grinch. He's like very politely roasting them like effortlessly and just being hilarious. And I just love that the Grinch is still around in that form. I think I mean, again, it goes back to how Jim Carrey made it his own to make his version of the Grinch the definitive one.
It's really, when you think about like Jim Carrey specifically, he crafted a version of the character that is very different than, say, the animated special, right? Whereas that Grinch was just that Grinch was almost like just like Shakespearean and mean and just like, I must stop this from coming, Whereas this Grinch, he's an insult comic. He's just
fun,
laying it down and hurt, being mean to people, and got cracks, jokes. It's kind of interesting too that Jim Carrey, the Grinch is a different version of Scrooge, of Ebenezer Scrooge. Is just someone who doesn't like Christmas. By the end, loves Christmas, right? Becomes the biggest Christmas celebrator of all. But neither of them benefit from the end of their story, because people only think about the Grinch and Scrooge as who they are at the beginning. Like, nobody thinks about the fact that they change by the end. They always use Scrooge and Grinch to meet people who hate Christmas. But he's played both of them. And one, he put his, the one he Jim Carreyfied, and the other one he really played, I think, a very accurate portrayal of Ebenezer Scrooge in his version of A Christmas Carol as well. So it's just kind of interesting that he has put his stamp on the two Christmas haters, at least two of the biggest Christmas haters out there.
That's true. That is a good point. I didn't even put those two together. That he does own the Christmas villain market now. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that, I think, is going to wrap up our discussion portion of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Oh. Now we're going to play Letterboxd game. And as the three of us are going to guess what we think the Letterboxd community has scored this movie on average on a 0 to 5 scale. We're going to go through and read some of the most popular reviews of the movie so we can kind of get a taste of what people are saying about the Grinch on Letterboxd. We've got 5 stars. Ron Howard's best film. Can you think of anything? Can you think of something better? I cannot.
Apollo 13.
3.5 star. No, I don't want to read that one, actually. 3 stars. If my future kids ever ask me who Baby Yoda is, I'm going to show them Baby Grinch instead.
Oh, that's awful. Don't do that.
5 stars. Why does the mayor of Whoville look like Mitt Romney? And then...
I thought they were going to say Jeffrey Tambor, and that was going to make me laugh harder.
3.5 stars. The fact that the Grinch sometimes wears clothes makes it more disturbing that he spends most of the movie butt-ass naked. So, a little all over the place there. What do we think?
Garrett, you and Josh are actually tied on on total wins, but Josh still has the lead in points because he's had a few more direct hits. So, Garrett, you still go first.
Oh. Confused me there. I thought I was doing better. I'm still last. That was just a nice way of saying I'm last.
Yeah.
Come on.
He still got you.
Just hit me with the bad news.
Still got
first.
you by points. And as we close in on the end of the year, we are coming close to who will take home the Letterboxd trophy, and or will it stay with me for another glorious year?
Oh, that's a good coin. The 3 stars there. That's a good pie. I don't know. This is a toughie. I feel like it's got such a classic, high quality vibe. But I also know Letterboxd a little critical sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna go with a 3.2.
Okay, 3.2. I'm gonna go a little higher than that. I'm sure 3.6.
Oh, that's where I was gonna go. Dang. Because the thing is, this also was kind of not loved critically at the time it was released, but I don't know if that is true on Letterboxd, because Letterboxd obviously
you looking at the wrong thing. You always looking at the critic score.
Well, I'm always
Letterboxd is of the fans. Letterboxd is of the fans.
I always just look up reviews from the time is what I do. I look up like read Ebert and Roper, or Siskel. I can't remember if Siskel was alive at this point. He probably was. But, and I look up, like, the LA Times has, like, all their stuff archived from back then. Josh took my answer, which was 3.6. I feel like Letterboxd loves it, but I feel like 3.5. If I get a direct hit here.
Okay.
Oh, 3.5. Did I freeze?
No, I think I just thought you did. 3.5. We got 3.6 for me, and what would you say? 3.2, Dave or Garrett? 3.2.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here what we're gonna have. Okay, we do not have a direct hit,
Oh, well.
which is good for Garrett and me, at least because it prevents David from getting to.
If I had tried a direct
Unfortunately,
hit, it'd be over.
it would be over, but it is a 3.4, which means David is going to get the point for being
Dang.
1.1 closer. Yeah.
1 point off. Okay. Well, that's my first one since Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I've been on a drought for a while here. But there are still three movies left in the year. Josh, you trail me by 3 points. Garrett trails by 5. So
I'm almost mathematically eliminated.
almost a couple of direct hits though, and you could take it.
Eliminated from contention.
So it's within distance. It's like it's coming down to the wire here, you guys. 3.4. So how do we feel about that?
We can't let him win anymore. Is what it has to be.
I know.
All right. Well, on that note,
3.4 is where I land. I was at 3.5.
Okay.
I just thought, I don't know. I usually guess high. So
You guys know what the Rotten Tomatoes is?
I do,
It's
because I looked just in case we needed a tiebreaker.
I believe it's 49%, isn't it?
It was, and the audience was 58. So it's actually kind of both not that loved. on
Surprisingly
Rotten Tomatoes
polarizing.
anyway.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Then
Right. Apparently. So okay. Garrett says he's going to give it a 3.5. David, what are you going to give this movie?
oh well, that's surprising. Because I'm still gonna give it a 4 because it's genuinely very funny. And my criticisms of the adaptation from the book aside, it's still funny enough that it elevates for me. I still remember these lines. I still say them to myself. So, yeah, I'm going to go 4 stars. If you're enjoying Christmas, you can't do much better.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm also going to give it 4 stars. It's a great movie. I actually looked at my letterbox, and the last time I watched it, I gave it 3, so I'm improving my score from last time. I think it's a 4-star movie. First so many Santas of the year now under our belt. And we've got more coming up as we reveal our picks. Well, we already revealed them if you go listen to that whole episode. But we'll be back next week with a whole new So Many Santas pick. And again, don't forget to check out our social media. Check out our Instagram at So Many Sequels Pod. We're going to be posting some polls there for you to vote on the fan pick of the month. And also leave your comments in our Instagram posts or in our DMs, on our YouTube videos. Let us know what you want us to watch for our big Christmas episode. And we will tally all those up. And we're going to do the fan pick this month. We did it for So Many Scares in October, and we had fun with it. So I'm excited to do it again. Are you guys?
Oh, definitely.
Definitely excited. Okay, well, that does it for us. Again, find us online at SoManySequels.com. You can find links to our social media accounts there, as well as all of our past episodes. Subscribe to the show in your podcasting app of choice. We're on pretty much all of them. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel if you haven't done that yet. Like I said at the top of the show, we're kind of trying to expand a little bit, giving it a little more love and attention. We're very excited to have 100 subscribers now, so that's very cool. If you can get us up to 112 million, no, that would be cool though. If you could help us get a few more at least before the end of the year, we would certainly appreciate that. Definitely. And if you really want to support the show, this is my last plug, patreon.com/SoManySequels. You can sign up there and get access to our Discord to talk with us and other movie fans about what movies and TV shows you're watching. So do all that. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.